All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this point what we should have focused on is just the outside edge of the head, your jawline, your shirt line, your neckline, anything else that you can kind of see that is just the basic outline stuff. I don't want you to get into any detail yet. What I'm going to go through is step by step how I want you guys to approach things like the eyes, nose, and mouth. For the eyes, nose, and mouth, the most important thing is placement and size. If you draw the eyes, nose, and mouth perfect, if you draw them perfect, and they're in the wrong place, or they're too big or too small, you will look deformed, all right? So if you draw them and you can't get the shapes exactly right, and you don't draw them exactly perfect, but they are the right size and they are in the right placement, it will still look like you. It might just look like a different expression. So when we're working, the first thing I want to do is I'm focusing on my eye. I'm looking at where does this fit into the box and how big. The red line, for the most part, touches almost on my eye, which is perfect. I'm going to focus just on the white part of the eye, and I'm going to look right over here, not even the tear duct, but really where the white of the eye starts. Where is that in this box? I'm going to look at where does the bottom part of my eye, how far into this box does it come? A little bit less than halfway. And then on this side, I'm going to look at just where the end of the white of the eye is. And again, you can zoom in on your own picture. I have set up in Photoshop just a little set of green lines. Your pictures won't have these. I'm putting these here to illustrate what I'm looking for as far as placement. When I start to draw the eye, I'm not even going to start with like the eyeball itself. I am really just trying to figure out first and foremost where in the box should that eye be. All right, defining, and really again, not the eyelids, not the tear duct, not the wrinkles or anything else around the eye, just the actual eyeball itself. And again, even though my picture is pretty symmetrical, that doesn't mean that things are going to line up exactly the same on both sides. In this case, I want to look how the space here is bigger in this box than it is there. Again, no matter how symmetrical you are, it doesn't mean that everything is going to line up exactly perfect. And the photograph may not be dead center either. So first and foremost, I've sort of plotted them out. Now, no matter how I draw them, whatever the shapes might be, they're going to fit inside this box. I may have to go in and draw and erase 10 times, 20 times. Part of the reason I gave you this heavyweight paper is that if you do have to erase, it'll hold up pretty well. But no matter how I draw that eye, I know that eye has got to fit into the box and in the place that I've already marked off. With that, what I'm doing right now is I'm really just looking for these little negative spaces, those little kind of tiny corners and triangles that sort of make up the eye. All right, so I have this empty space, that empty space. So when I'm working, those are the little bits that I'm trying to draw. I'm trying to look at those little shapes and get a similar sort of amount of space taken out. By doing it this way, you know, even if I don't get this almond shape of the eye exactly perfect, I still will have something that is in the right place and the right size. For those of you who watch like CSI or any of those crime shows, you know there's facial recognition software. In fact, a lot of your iPhones can recognize your face to unlock them. The idea here is that your face, the spacing of your eyes, your nose, and your mouth is all unique to you. So if you get that spacing correct, even if the shapes are a little off, it can still look like you. Now I'm going to focus on working on the color part of the eye, the iris, the pupil. And when I do that, what I want to think of is, before I draw it, this edge, where is it? How close is it to that line? And I want to mark that off. I'm going to think about where this is and intersects in this area. How much white of the eye am I going to have? When I start working on that, what I want to think about too is that I really want to look at the shape. All right, we all know that that's a circle, but when you look at mine, it's a little bit wider in the picture this way, and the top of that circle's cut off by my eyelid. You can see the bottom of it, but not the top. So those are things that I want to kind of keep in mind when I am drawing it. Again, that it fits in that space. Some people just figure, oh, well, there's supposed to be a circle in there. I'll draw a circle, then I'm done. But you want to still look for the correct placement and the correct shape. All right, that they're not too big or too small. Again, we can adjust these as we're going, and as I get a little bit more confident, I try to make things a little bit darker. I'll look on the same thing on the other side. I will see how much space is there here, and I'll try to identify how much white of the eye I should have right there. I'll look at the same thing on the other side, and then again, try to sort of measure out where I'll have the actual white of the eye. Then I'll start working on that circle, and again, on that side as well, part of that circle's cut off on the top. All right? By doing it this way, I will have a very good chance at being successful. If you just start to try to draw the eye shape without identifying the spacement or the actual size, what's going to happen is you'll draw a really good eye, but if it's in the wrong spot, it won't make any difference. It won't look like you. I'll refine my drawing a little bit, and then as I start feeling pretty good about where it is and what it looks like, then I'll start looking at things like the eyelids. And I'm not going to make anything up. Again, I'm just looking for edges. I'm just looking for what I can see and where it lines up. So I won't be out there looking and just like, oh, I'll just make an eyelid. I'm going to look at what is there, where does it line up, and what can I draw? I'm going to look over here at my sort of like the wrinkle on my sort of brow, and I kind of feel like I've got enough of an edge here that I can try to draw that as well. So anything that you see that you find helpful in the drawing, that you can really identify as an edge, is something that you should and could draw. I've got a pretty pronounced crease on this side of my head, and again, I want to kind of identify where it goes and make sure I have enough space here and here, more so than trying to get that shape exactly right. Now, for your eyebrows and things like that, some of it you may have to draw, some of it you won't. Wherever you see an edge, in my case, I see edges right on the edge here at the top, but not so much here or on the other side. Again, I'm encouraging you not to draw what you don't see. Don't make up stuff. All you need here is a little hint of where that's going to go, because a lot of that's going to be about shading. The same thing I have on the other side, I really have an edge on this end of it. So really what I want to identify first is where exactly in this box does that line up, and then only draw the part of the edge that I see. All right. With that, I'll kind of just clean up some of the other parts of this. And really, for my eyes, this is all I would really draw. I don't think I have any more information in that particular area. Now, with my picture, I don't have the nose and the mouth. So I'm going to just switch over really quickly to a different portrait and just go over the nose and the mouth. Okay. Same things apply here as I did before with the rest of the face. When I'm working on this one, I want to identify where in the box do these things line up, how close to the edges of the straight and the vertical and the horizontal are they, and I want to plot them out first. The biggest mistake I see people make when they're working on these things is inevitably they either draw their eyes way, way too big, they draw their nose way, way small, and then the lips are usually just whatever. They'll draw something that looks like a mouth, but it may not necessarily be their mouth and what they're seeing in the picture. What I'm telling you to do is to focus first on getting that placement down. With Mrs. B's picture, her face is at an angle, okay? She's turning and looking in one direction, and she's tilting her head. So what one eye is doing has nothing to do with the other one. I'm focusing on where the edges of the actual eyeball are. When I place that down, I want to really spend a lot of time making sure these boxes that I just sketched out are as close to where I think they should be as possible. After that, I can go in there and obsess about the actual shape of the eye. And that's something that I might myself go over and do over and erase and do over and erase. But I want you guys to realize that no matter how many times I draw it, it will be made to fit inside that box and be that size. All right, and that's what I'm going to do. So even if I don't like the actual layout or how I've done it, when I erase it, I'm still going to be making it in that spot and that size. And again, as you feel more confident with it, you can go darker and darker. I'm not going to do a whole lot on the eyes here. I'm going to kind of rush them a little bit because for her, I'd really like to work on the nose and the mouth. Again, with the nose and the mouth, we want to look for our edges. Where's the edge of the nostril on this side and this side? How far down does it come over here? I want to go and plot these things out. It's important for me to see this is in the middle of this box, but not exactly in the middle. This side is a little bit bigger than that. And those are the mild distinctions that you're going to want to pick up on and make sure that you're getting accurate, that even though it's close to the middle, it's not dead middle. Now, the green line for the bottom of the nose is really along that line, so I'm okay. This is the next one I need to worry about, and I'm going to say that I'm going to approximate it about here. Again, we can look for that little negative space in there to try to help us out. Now, as far as drawing it, again, only focus on the edges. I'm not even trying to necessarily draw this curve. I'm looking, you see this little gray triangle? I'm looking to just put that little gray triangle in and get that the right size. All right? I've got another sort of triangle forming here, and I'm just going to try to block off that space and size. That's more important than getting the shape of her nose right. All right? It's more important to have it in the right place and be approximately the right size, and having those negative spaces are really an opportunity to get that right. When I look at this nostril, I'll look at how close it is to this line and how it sort of hugs that line and just sort of dips down. Over here, I have another little tiny triangle. If I just draw a tiny triangle here, I'm almost done with the nose. The biggest issue with what people do is they start drawing all types of lines on the nose, and they draw too much. This is all I would do on her face. That's all I need. The rest of the things where you don't have those hard edges is all going to be done with shading, all right? And that shading is going to change the way the nose looks fairly dramatically. Everything without the shading on it is going to look much larger than it's supposed to be. The mouth, I've also put guidelines, and again, I'm going to focus on those guidelines. I did not draw them on your pictures. I'm showing them to you because that's what I want you to think about. Without that line, I was going to put that part of the lip entirely too low. But looking at this space and realizing that needs to be closed up, that's what I'm doing there. Then to draw the lips, I'm looking at the triangle that's formed right in here. And I'm going to try to emulate that as much as possible, at least as far as its placement goes. Same thing on the other side. I'm going to look at where that little wrinkle, that little corner of the mouth is, all right, and realize that one side is lower than the other. I have another triangle forming right in here. Now I want to try to see where does it start, approximately how big does it get, and where does it finish. These will help me lay out where the mouth goes. Now, you may be able to draw a really good mouth. I've never even really mastered that in my time. But it doesn't matter. If you can draw awesome lips and they're the wrong size and in the wrong place, they're really not going to get the job done. It's not going to end up looking like the person that you're trying to draw. And again, less is more. I can look for other edges, little edge right in here in the dimple. I can look at where that placement is and try to get that in there. I've got another little line on this side. I'm going to look at where the placement of that is. Where does it go? All right. And again, less is more. Try to be accurate in your placement more so than trying to draw the perfectly shaped eye or perfectly shaped nose. We want to really make sure they're in the right places. If you can get that down, we'll be successful. Ladies, no matter how fleeked out your eyebrows are, don't draw giant rectangles over here. Just look for where the edges are, how much of it ends up in the box. And if you don't have a clear-cut edge, don't go out of your way to draw one. All right, don't make things up that are not there. On this side, the edges are a little less apparent, but I can see approximately where those shapes fit in and just give myself a little hint at where I would sort of shade later on. That's really all I would put in there. Once I feel pretty good about that, I'd erase some of my grid lines. But you wouldn't get further than this without taking a photograph of it and sending it to me. Remember that this is still going to look very much different than, the final product, because it really doesn't have any shading. That shading is going to change a lot of things. And again, you have a lot of time to make corrections and adjustments and changes. Even working right now, I realize that, part of that lip is not exactly where I want it to be. So I've got to go back in there and make some adjustments. I didn't make my triangle here as large as the one that was there. Take your time with this. Don't rush. Make sure you're in the right box, in the right place. Try to look for the edges of things, the corners, and give yourself some indication in your drawing where that's going to be. You'll be a lot more successful plotting things out like that than simply just going in and trying to draw an eye. If I drew the perfect eye and I put it up here, it's not going to make a difference. If I drew a great eye and it's this big, it's not going to make a difference. So take your time, try to be accurate.